season finale of the hit Hallmark Movie Channel, Lifetime, Weather Channel, and HBO joint series, Weather Story. Our show is designed to promote scientific literacy on the cutting edge of 21st century science based on apocryphal and entirely made up stories. Nevertheless designed to entertain. So let's give yourselves a round of applause since you'll be choosing the winner tonight. Woo! Welcome the judges, Kevin and Adam. Judges, do you have any advice for our contestants?
Well, of course we've got advice. I mean, in fact, we've always got something to say. So they should feel free to BS as much as is needed to outduel the competition, right? I mean, these people have BS degrees, MS degrees, and piled it higher and deeper. So that's their advantage. And then, but they can't make it unbelievable because then we're not going to buy it, okay? And then they need to make sure they relate things to the governing equations. They need to make sure they answer why. And of course, don't forget to cite your relevant source code.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. How about you? What do you think, Adam?
They just need to keep it real. Because on accuracy as well as entertainment value. So definitely look for entertainment amongst these two folks and tell us who's the better player. We had a pretty good audience riot last month, and therefore this show has become quite the hit. And to be quite honest, Valpo pays my bills, so I need the money.
Well, you got to really thank our sponsor, Joe Blow's Radar.
With that 6-week radar deal, we keep bringing in new contracts.
We do. Very good. Well, let's meet our contestants. Let's welcome back Teresa. Who's made it all the way to the finale. You had some phenomenal weeks that I'm sure the audience will remember on tropical meteorology and the governing dynamical equations. But you really hit some stumbles more recently with that early morning theme, the friction term. But still, you made it to the finale. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. The meal was great. You did promise a cheese tray.
Staff is going to be stunned by that. It's okay. We'll get you some cheese after. And Bart, how are you doing heading into today? You had a really, really strong streak with all the storm chase stories and convective stories and the radar material, Real and Imagine. Really, really good. On EOS really threw you last week off kilter a little bit, but you did make the finale. How do you feel and what's your strategy for tonight?
Craig, I just go out there every day and I use my God-given talents the best that I possibly can. That brings me to a story.
We can't give you extra story time because we're just getting out. Well, man, you got your workout cut out for you. Now it's just a little gift. All the candidate fodder candidates are all gone from the previous week, so you got your work cut out for you. Well, let's turn it over to the judges, and they can begin with their questions.
All right, so the first theme this week is climate change and forecasting. Teresa, can you tell us a brief story explaining the history of seasonal outlooks that we all take for granted?
Well, it all starts with that and it was autumn, and the Tehuantepec tribe of Native Americans from South Mexico had moved up into South Texas. And they asked their new chief, who was not used to Texas, if the winter was going to be cold or mild. Since he was the first tribal, well, I have a great word there, Native American leader, not having taken Craig's climate change course, and being from southern Mexico instead of South Texas, he'd never been taught the secrets of how to predict the weather, forecast the weather in this area. Round, BRO, basically. So, and when he looked at the sky, he couldn't tell what the weather was going to be just by looking. So he thought about this, but he was a pretty wise leader. And he just said to be safe, all right, you better gather some wood because it could be cold, and we're going to need to make sure we're safe. But being practical, he decided he'd call the National Weather Service office and ask them what was going on. So he grabbed his phone and asked. And they said, well, let us check the models. Poor Tranquil. Is coming winter going to be cold? Yes. Looks like the winter is going to be quite cold indeed, the National Weather Service Brownsville office responded. So the chief went back to his folks and he said, folks, we better get some more wood because it really looks like it's going to be cold. It's Brownsville, but still, we get one of those cold surges come down, we're done for. So a week later, he calls the National Weather Service again and says, this is going to be, what do you think about the weather? You really think it's going to be a cold winter? And they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be a very cold winter. Chief went back to his people, said, you know, folks, we really got to get this together. Better go a little bit further out, get some more wood. We got to be ready for this because if we don't get any southerlies, we're done for. 2 weeks later, he calls the Weather Service again. Are you absolutely sure this is going to be a cold winter? Absolutely, the man replied. It's going to be one of the coldest winters ever. How can you be so sure? The Native American chief asked. The weatherman replied, Native Americans are collecting wood like crazy.
Okay, Art, your question that we have for you, as much has been made lately on the applications of artificial intelligence to trying to solve our many forecast problems. Can you describe briefly, please, why AI may not be the wonderful, all-encompassing thing people think it might be?
Well, Adam, let me tell you a story. Last year, I had the misfortune of observing one of our college seniors after about 3 days of cramming for final exams. They're just completely burned out. And they noticed as they were walking down Lincoln Way aimlessly past our pawn shops, a sign for brains for sale. And they were just completely toasted, so they figured, I'm going to go in and see if I can trade one. So they went in and they noticed on the shelf there were a number of brains, apparently transplantable, I'm not sure, but that's the story. First one was an architect, and it said $25,000. Second one was a surgeon, and it said $50,000. You walked down the hall a little longer, and there was a shelf with a meteorologist's brain on it. It said $500,000. So he called the owner of the pawn shop over, and he said, why is this brain so much more expensive? The owner said, simple, it's never been used.
Teresa.
I know. That was good.
As you know, Teresa, Mount Grace is a religious institution. Can you please relate a biblical context to the development of weather?
A preacher and his flock in a very poor church in the hills of eastern Nebraska, took up collections, baked cakes, washed cars for months to get enough money to buy paint for the church exterior, which was pretty bare and weather-beaten. Finally, they went to Walmart, bought enough paint for the job, and all joined together on Saturday morning to finish up the job. When they were about halfway through, they realized that the church building was a little bit bigger than they had calculated. And the preacher said, it's water-based paint, let's just add some water, take down, density goes down, They continued painting and thinning until the color started losing its depth. And when they finally finished, it was dark green up the top. And the preacher and his flock, and so we got this dark green at the bottom, and then it kind of goes to this light green, and then it goes really light green. It's practically white all the way up at the bottom. I said that wrong. Anyway, sorry.
Mindset.
Yeah, you start at the top when you paint. Sorry, you know, it's kind of like clockwise.
Stop working the church.
The creature and his flock were standing on a nearby hill, admiring their work when a dark cloud moved into forecasting. So it appeared, and the heavens opened up with a deluge of rain, which washed away all of the paint, nearly all of it, because it was water-based. The creature was in tears, the congregation was stunned at all the hard work they had done for nothing. Then there was all of a sudden this huge lightning flash, followed by a roll of thunder. Thankfully, in that order. And a loud voice from the heavens rang out. Repaint, repaint, and then no more.
Put on funk.
Mark, we have one more question for you. And as you well know, because you work with Craig Clark, Christmas will soon be upon us. Insights that relate to season 2, modern broadcast techniques, and what we refer to as forecast intuition.
I'm glad you asked that question. Many of you know I'm a weather historian. Back in old communist Russia, famous meteorologist Rudy Skilling. Rudy had incredible respect among his countrymen for his accurate broadcasts. In fact, he was especially good at forecasting liquid precipitation. Well, one day, Rudy at the 6 o'clock newscast gave the news that people didn't especially want to hear. He said, there is an incredible storm coming, and it is likely to flood out some of our local villages. Now, at the time, it was completely sunny outside. There was nothing on the radar, such as Russian radars are. So when he got home that evening, his wife confronted him and said, Rudy, there's not a cloud in the sky. It is not going to rain. There is no way it's going to rain. Rudy got upset. Rudy said, you know what? I know how to forecast rain. And the wife's like, it is not going to rain. It is clear. It's been clear all day. It was one of the nicest days we've had in weeks. They got into a heated argument, went to bed angry. Well, sure enough, that night, it poured. In fact, it poured so bad that it flooded much of the local village out. His wife was amazed. The next morning, she woke up and said, Rudy, you were right again. How is it that you're able to forecast rain like that? Rudy turns to his wife and said, Rudolph the Red knows rain here.
Nicely done, contestants. I think that both of us as judges are actually quite impressed by what you've come up with so far. Little rough delivery times. We look past that here. This is all about energy. To be fair, I think right now we have a tie going into the lightning round. So at this point, this is going to be tough for both of you. Both of you need about a 15-second or less weather story. And we'll start with Teresa.
Where's my clock? A newcomer to Seattle arrives on a rainy day. He gets up the next day, it's still raining. Next day it's raining. The next day it's raining. He goes out to lunch, it's raining. He sees this little kid, and he's like, what's going on? Does it ever stop raining around here? The kid says, I don't know, I'm only 6.
That's good. That's subtle. That's subtle.
All right. Well, many of you know it's an El Nino year this year, and if you've been watching the news, you probably know that El Nino has been affecting a lot of the shipping between much of Southeast Asia and the west coast of the United States. In fact, last week, there was a ship that was carrying a load of yo-yos to the west coast of the United States, and it hit a particularly damaging storm, and it sank 65 times.
Questions are done. What do you think after the lightning round? Which way do you think the audience is gonna vote? We're gonna open it up to them.
It's pretty close. I mean, they both had good positives. Yeah, the lightning round went a little long, so that's a little troublesome.
Okay.
Everything is timed. We have so many working load credits, and we can't go over that.
Right. Well, it just occurred to me how non-reversible all this was.
Teresa did a really good job bringing in the governing equations and the source code.
Yeah,
I
it's
really
really
like
good.
that.
No concentration at all on the energetics, no potential temperature entropy references. Very good, very good.
Not everybody likes thermos, so.
What do you think, audience? All in all?
Yeah, what do you think?
Call it a
Come
tie?
on, clap for Bart. Clap for Teresa, and keep in mind she may not have her exam ready yet.